Put your hands together for Dwight Skip Stackhouse.
In the telling of his story, as a prelude to the storming of the Bastille, Charles Dickens described life in Paris as the best of times and the worst of times. The prelude to the uprising in 1967 here in Detroit was like that. It was certainly among the best of my times. I was a young man. I found a bride. She said yes. But there was a great deal of unrest among the people, and especially that group called Black. But make no mistake, this was a rightful insurrection. It was quickly corrupted by hoodlums and brigands and blue and green and black and white. Memory fades for some, but I believe all of the stories are true. Everyone remembers what they remember, and there are a million stories to tell. I was there, and I remember frightening, devastating moments that have burned in my eyes for decades, and some that warmed my heart. I had reason to be at 12th Street in Claremont on that Sunday morning, and it was early and beautiful. I remember when I walked out the door on that fateful morning, it felt like I had the whole city to myself. And you know how a quiet morning can make you feel. And I had no reason to believe that this day would be unlike any other. That changed quickly. Soon there were dozens, then hundreds, then thousands of angry people filling the streets, and there was hot smoke and angry fire and mayhem. When I got to the place where I was to be, there were police cars and barricades, and it was nearly impossible to tell whether or not the city was under siege. Nor could you tell who the insurgents were, the police or the people. The pimps and whores and hustlers were still out from their night's activity. And I will never forget one of the whores walked right up to my car and she said, "I'm selling ass and head and it's good." I didn't even know what that meant. I could not go about my business. It was disallowed. The area was cordoned off, nearly an encampment with bivouacs popping up here and there. And there was a foreboding buzz developing in the air, which was becoming increasingly thick. And in about 2 hours, a storm of humanity came, filling the streets, and there was angry fire and mayhem and death, certainly death coming. The rightful insurrection was becoming a riot, a devastating calamity, and many people wept and many partied. I can remember a young man I ran into from the old neighborhood from which we had moved while taking the chance of moving on up. And yes, in the early 60s, Linwood and Pingree was moving on up. He came urgently, flinging open the doors of his car and his trunk, and he looted to overflowing. You see, he had been corrupted by the mob, or by the flames, or just the opportunity. I went to the corner of Linwood and Pingree, or Euclid or Blaine, where I saw some unwell man standing above a merchant who had fallen or been thrown to the ground. And this fellow was standing above him, straddling him, and he had a large piece of concrete held high above his head, and he hurled it at the ground, at the face of this man lying there helplessly, already bleeding. And he missed. How he missed, I have no idea, but he missed, and upon missing, one of his fellow hoodlums came and grabbed him by the arm, pulling him away, as if they had a better opportunity elsewhere, or perhaps he was tormented by what might have happened. Perhaps somewhere in his consciousness, the image of what could have been burned as he turned to see the merchant scrambling to his feet, at which time their eyes met, and there is no way to describe the look on their faces. Yet another merchant, a Polish-American, came running from home to his store, only to find it empty. Glass broken, but not ransacked, simply empty. And he had been a good citizen, kind to the people, with neighborly conversation and kindness. He was one of those people who would extend credit from time to time, and he was crushed to see that his facility had not been spared. But when the madness died, and to Steve's surprise, all of his merchandise was returned, including the alcoholic beverages and the cigarettes. Steve wept gratefully and stayed as long as he could as a good citizen. Not long, as it turns out, as the social fire was simply too hot. And then, through the day and through the many days and nights to come, one could hear the rat-a-tat-tat of machine gun fire blowing merciless holes in dreams, and beautiful mansions on LaSalle Boulevard, where the henchmen, the armored guard, now as corrupt as the looters themselves, had heard, and at least this is the legend, that a particular criminal was holed up there, and so the killing was justified. Probable cause, etc. Snipers were posted, and so the killing was justified. The collateral killing was justified. The killing in the neighborhoods was authorized. The rightful insurrection going bad, corrupted by greed, fear, hatred. And so then I wanted to see what else was going on, because I didn't know it at the time, but this, my neighborhood, was the epicenter. And so my sisters and I, we got into the car and we drove onto the freeways to see where else this madness was taking place. And we saw angry fire, a city aflame, and it seemed to me that everywhere I looked, this could not be true, but this is how I remembered the way it seemed. The city was ablaze, stem to stern. And soon the militia came in, pulling tanks and machine guns, an endless variety of military weapons, bringing an angry fire of their own and unleashing a new hell on an already hellish scene. say it still rises. Fire, smoke, and fear, all killers. I have a different view. I spend a lot of time in my city, the neighborhoods, that epicenter. I live there. And I see something grand coming. I and the sun and people like me rise hopefully every day, and we see a new civility at work. We see a healing underway, an overarching forgiveness belied by the insanity in Washington. A great many people left the city. There was an exodus. Some left immediately, never to return, left house, clothes, furniture, everything. The perverse sense of entitlement is fading, with some feeling entitled to the lion's share and others feeling entitled to their leavings. There is, after all, a new fire of hope, which has to be on the list of the best of things. We cannot afford to behave as if nothing has been achieved in the past 50 years. We cannot behave as if we begrudge the achievements of others. You must have some dreams of your own. I have a sack full of them. And all of my dreams are fulfilled when there is a consistent laughter of children in the neighborhoods. If we could only begin to see that the happy sound of children is the highest currency in the land. We have that, we need nearly nothing else. It means all else is well. I want to share this with you. The mighty Maasai people of Africa, who certainly know something about the concept of village, have so completely embedded the concept of raising the children into their culture that it has become a greeting for them. Every conversation begins with the phrase, "Kasarian Ingira," which means, how are the children? Every conversation, Kasarian Ingira, how are the children? Now this is very different from, what's up? How's it hanging? Think about this. In 1965, the year I graduated from high school and 2 years before the insurrection, the Detroit public school system was a paragon of education. It was rated number 4 in the country. Number 4 in the country. Now this brings us back to the children, which leads unavoidably to the parents, which brings us inevitably to us, we, the people. We have a chance to make a new history in a historic place. Now, where am I going with this? Where are we going from here? I would like for you to consider going with me to a civil place. I will not be hard to find. I will be spending all of my time in the neighborhoods, unpacking my sack full of dreams.